All right, folks, welcome to Insight here. As always, I'm Brock White, joined with the Dickens Press's Dustin Monkey. Dustin, how are you tonight?
I'm not too bad.
Great. We're going to shake the format up once again in studio. Our guest this week, the GOP ticket for the governor's office, and our Attorney General WayneStenhjem and State Senator Nicole Poolman. Great interview, Dustin.
Oh, great people here in the studio. Obviously, I've interviewed Mr. WayneStenhjem several times, the Attorney General, whether it be for oil issues, whether it be him visiting Dickinson for something. We got a lot of questions lined up for him here, from everything from their platforms and positions, on everything from economic to social issues, to the campaign and the kind of the chippiness and the contentiousness between himself and Doug Burgum, the other Republican, one of the other Republican,
who we had in studio last
candidates.
week.
Yes, so it's we've got a lot lined up for you here, so make sure you stay tuned and check it out.
That's right. We'll take a quick commercial break, coming up with the interview with WayneStenhjem and Nicole Poolman.
Consolidated is committed to providing advanced network systems and service to the business world, staying ahead of the curve by offering digital technology with voice over IP, Ethernet circuits, hosted telephone systems, as well as cloud-based networking. GNet fiber technology allows us to offer internet speeds up to 1 gig, making your network more efficient. Our sales and technical team take pride in providing state-of-the-art service to our customers. At Consolidated, we're here to listen and offer the most efficient solutions for your business.
Folks, with primary season heating up and the campaign trail on a blaze right now, we welcome in studio the Republican nominee for governor, Mr. WayneStenhjem, our current Attorney General, and also his Lieutenant Governor candidate, Ms. Nicole Poolman, our current state senator out of Bismarck, correct?
Correct.
Thanks for joining us today, guys. We appreciate it.
A real pleasure to be here.
For sure.
Thanks for inviting us.
You bet. Let's jump right into it, Wayne. What do the first 6 months look like in a Stenhjem office?
Well, the first thing that we'll have to do, of course, is deal with the legislature that will have been in town for the 4 months of January through April. Budgetary concerns are going to be top of the line, because we need to make sure that we balance our budget, that we balance the amount of revenue we have with the expenditures that we can afford to make. And of course, that is a critical time for setting the course for the next 2 years. And so we'll be working on that. And the budget is going to be the biggest short-term challenge that we have. We're certainly hopeful that the price of commodities will come back, and that we'll have additional funding so that we can do some of the extra things that we were able to do with the surge funding and the infrastructure needs out here in western North Dakota. But that will be the key thing. One of the things that I'm going to be paying the most attention to in my administration that I think needs to be addressed is the question of this. We cannot continue to afford to increase the appropriations for our penitentiary system in North Dakota. We've just expanded the state penitentiary, and already it's full. And now we're seeing local counties that are having to build jails, and some people belong in jail. Don't get me wrong on this. I'm a cop guy.
Such as Watford City, which you know well. I mean,
right.
They've expanded that whole system up there.
They have, and the need was there. But one of the things that we know is that 80% of the people who are in the penitentiary or in the local jails have a chemical addiction issue, and we are not addressing that to the extent that
we've heard that on the show from Rich Warner himself.
We just haven't,
months ago.
And I'm on the Alternatives to Incarceration Commission, but also as Attorney General, of course, I deal with local law enforcement all the time, and I hear from folks, and I certainly know that 80% of the people that are in the system have a chemical addiction issue. Either they're there because they've committed a drug crime, or that is something that goes along with whatever it is. We cannot continue this inexorable increase in the price of incarcerating people and not do something to address the recidivism issue here in North Dakota. And we never will unless we provide adequate, effective treatment, so that, because 95% of the people who are in prison are going to get out one day, and if you don't address that addiction side of the equation, they're going to get out, they're going to get back into that same environment they were in, and they're going to be back in jail again.
Is there a number on how many inmates come back after release?
There are, and of course it depends on how you look at it statistically.
There's different ways you can gauge it, but
because it's
tied to chemical imbalances, is there a number we can?
Those figures do exist, and we know that here in North Dakota it's too high. There are other models in other states that have addressed that addiction issue, and their numbers are better than what ours are. And so not only is it long-term, more cost-effective, it's also the right thing to do by the people who have those issues, because you can make law-abiding citizens out of them.
Productive members of society. That's the old tagline.
That's all we ask.
And we wrote about that issue this last week here with the story out of the New England Women's Prison, how their budgets are down now because of the state budget cuts. They still have more people than more women in there than they probably should. But it seems like that's an issue that's already happening here. What other issues, what other policies and ideas do you have, in your back pocket right now that you think are going to affect Western North Dakota more than, say, anywhere else in the state?
Well, and it's more than just waiting for the price of commodities to go back, and they will. I mean, I think, in fact, already today they are going up, and we're hoping that's something.
$45 a barrel right now.
Went up 30% during the 30 cents a barrel while I was talking, and so that's a trend that I we take credit for.
We listened to Rotary on Wednesday and chatted. That was good.
But of course, the companies are not going to be comfortable until that increases maybe up to the $50 level, and then stays at that rate for 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, sustain.
Comfort level. One thing that I think we have learned in North Dakota, we learned it from our farmers, and my great grandparents came out here to Western North Dakota to farmstead. They had a homestead, thanks to Abraham Lincoln, and started to do one thing that everybody did, and that's grow wheat. And it wasn't long before we realized that's not enough. We have to diversify our farm commodities, and we did that and started growing. We grew potatoes, but now North Dakota, having realized that, is the top producer of a number of commodities: barley, oats, flax, honey. We're number one because we learned that we have to diversify the economy. Then, in the meantime, we found out we're pretty richly blessed with oil and natural gas and lignite coal here in North Dakota, and that's been a whole other chapter for us in North Dakota. But we also know that the price of those commodities is cyclical. They go up, they go down. You have to plan for it and be ready for it, and I think that we have. But that also means that one of the priorities for me, to get to your question, is to further diversify our economy, to make sure that we're not just relying on the two top producers here in North Dakota, but also tourism, which is number 3. And then the diversified economy. We've got diesel refineries, we've got a plastic plant that we're talking about that will utilize natural gas that might otherwise be flared. We've got high tech coming here to North Dakota. In Grand Forks, the University of North Dakota, together with private enterprise, together with the Air Base, has become the global hub of unmanned vehicle technology. Those are all things that are not directly related to the other things we're doing in North Dakota. If we can continue, and we will, in my administration, to do those value-added things that diversify our economy, then we'll be well positioned to kind of bridge these gaps as commodity prices ebb and flow.
Your opponent in this race, Doug Bergen, was on this very show last week, and he mentioned there's examples in the budget of items that are categorized as one-time spending, but in his opinion, aren't one-time spending, they're not infrastructure related. So he cited office supplies and other ongoing projects as an example. Is North Dakota facing revenue shortfall, which we know we are? Do we have a spending problem as well?
Well, that is one of the issues, and we're not in a deficit spending because we can't.
That's the word you guys you hate.
Well, it is
the D word.
Only because it's inaccurate. We can't spend money we don't have.
But do we have a spending problem? Is there things that got a little away from us here in the past few bienniums?
We're not going to be able to sustain the spending level that we have seen in the last two biennia or so, just because those prices are down, our income is down. But the thing that the legislature did, that I think was really wise, was that one-time spending. And that includes a lot of things out here in Western North Dakota that were critical. And you know better than I do how dangerous the highways were out here in Western North Dakota. We were losing too many kids, too many citizens in North Dakota on those highways because they were not adequate for the traffic that we had. And so the legislature, and Nicole Pullman co-sponsored that bill, $1.2 billion. It was one-time spending that provided the bypasses around Dickinson and Killdeer and Watford City and Williston, 4-lane, Highway 85, all the way from Williston now down to Watford City, and probably will be going further south than that. It's saving lives. That is one-time spending. So it's more than office supplies and paper clips. Those are major expenditures of real money that were paid for cash in advance, and that's smart. And the other thing that the legislature did was to set aside a lot of money into a variety of different savings accounts. They have enabled us to bridge the gap as we see it now, and will sustain us over the next couple of years. And there are several of those kinds of things. But coupled with that, we do have to make some cuts. There's no question about that. We already have had the allotment of 4.05%, which was a $255 million cut in ongoing expenditures. That's kind of a wise thing. I was in the legislature in 1987 when that allotment process was established so that we could realize that when times are tough, you just have to make those
And when
cuts.
you're setting a budget for 2 years, things are going to change. I mean, life changes. Life happens in 2 years.
In January of 2015, they were trying to guess what the price of wheat was going to be 24 months later, or the price of oil. And while it would be nice if any one of us could prognosticate,
we wouldn't be sitting here.
we'd be sitting on your yacht down in the Caribbean talking about how good things are. And so you have to realize those times come. You have to plan for them and project for it, and I think that's what's happened, and that's why we'll pay all the bills we have to pay. We'll address it during the next budget cycle to make sure that our expected revenue equals what it is we have to spend. I was in the legislature those 24 years, and I was in the legislature during the boom of the boom and then the bust in the early 1980s, and I know that you have to make tough calls. You have to, when things are lean, you can't fund everything that you want to fund. You have to decide what your priorities are and fund them, and then you have to make cuts and adjustments elsewhere.
You and other North Dakota leaders have kind of taken offense to the Burgum campaign and what you just said. You've been in the legislature for a long time, and you've been in state politics as well. To the term career politician, that gets thrown around out there by the Burgum campaign. With the shakeup that's happening nationally right now, as we're seeing it today, especially with Donald Trump and that whole, outsider thing happening, what is your take on that? And just, tell us why, in your eyes, being a career politician isn't such a bad thing for the state.
I don't think it is, and I don't think Doug Burgum even thinks so either. I think he conducted a poll, and they said that maybe that's a good idea. And the reason I say that is that I went to most of 47 district conventions around the state of North Dakota before our state convention, and at every one of them I heard him say WayneStenhjem is the finest Attorney General we've ever seen, and he does an incredibly effective job, and what he wants to do is make sure I continue in that office. And we all laughed, of course, because...
Said the same thing here last week.
He said the same thing on our show, exactly.
So, and then he conducts a poll, and then he just says, I guess we're all for term limits now, without addressing the fact that he said all of those nice things about me, and that he's also supporting John Hoeven, who will be into his 26th year if you in state service. What's important to remember, and I never forget this, these offices that we are honored to hold are not appointive, and they're not lifelong. You have to earn them. You earn them by earning the respect of the citizens, and then they vote for you or they don't vote for you. And if they're happy with the work that they've done, then they support you and they re-elect you. And I've been very lucky and honored to have earned pretty wide margins, even out here where I get 82% of the vote for the work that I've done. And I think I've been very effective as Attorney General. I'm proud of it. I'm eager to bring that same energy and excitement and competence into the governor's office.
Nicole, unless someone's really engaged in North Dakota politics, they might not know who you are, especially on this side of the state. So really quick for the viewers at home, give us your resume and why you're qualified to be Lieutenant Governor of North Dakota.
Well, I was excited to be chosen as the first member of Wayne's team. I have been an educator for 18 years, high school English, and I have been in the Senate since 2012. And the main role of the Lieutenant Governor is to preside over the Senate. And so not only am I qualified to preside over the Senate, I've really built a lot of relationships there with the people, and I think that that will be helpful not just in the Senate, but also in the House as we try to shepherd our ideas through the legislature. It's important to have strong relationships there, and I think that I have built those. I've worked hard in the legislature for statewide efforts. Wayne just mentioned the surge bill. I was a co-sponsor of the infrastructure that came out west. I was a co-sponsor of the bill that reduced our corporate and income taxes. I was a co-sponsor on the bill that created the DEAL program for students to consolidate their student loans at a nice low rate. And so I think that I've had a statewide perspective as a legislator for the past 2 sessions, and that can carry forward into being part of Wayne's team.
So, obviously you guys have known each other for a long time, right? Friends with your husband, Jim. You worked with him in state politics for years. Was it an easy decision for you to take this leap of faith? I mean, you're a teacher. This is a career. I mean, you're obviously a part-time politician,
your career
full-time
path.
teacher. It's a huge change for you.
Right. It would be a huge career change for me, but it would be an honor to work as part of this team. I think that it's so important. I think that we're just such at a unique key time here in North Dakota to have strong leadership and strong experience, and that it's no time for on-the-job training. And so to be part of a Stenhjem administration would be a great honor. So it was certainly an emotional decision to make, but one that I'm really excited to be part of.
You know, Wayne, you're on record as saying that the sky isn't falling. You need to stay the course in North Dakota. But with families losing good paying jobs, big major energy companies leaving our state in the past few months, and a somewhat bleak outlook for the ag industry.
Last couple
the rain might help.
The rain helps.
We'll give us that.
At least on this side of the state.
They were giving me credit at the Rotary for the rain, and I was happy to take it.
That's great. But is staying the course the best plan for North Dakota?
Not just staying the course.
You mentioned earlier that
I'm talking about doubling down and doing additional things in the area of diversifying our economy even further, and we can do that. But I think as we look at what's been happening in North Dakota, that time of doom and gloom, that's the message of yesterday. Tomorrow's message is one of real optimism in North Dakota. That's especially true if you look at where it is we've come, how far it is we've come. In 1990, the gross domestic product of the entire state of North Dakota was $11.5 billion, which was a lot. 10 years later, it was double that. We were at $22 billion. And then by 2014, 2014, we were up to $55 billion as gross domestic product. That's ag, energy, tourism, everything else. And then in the last couple of quarters of last year, it dips down to $54 billion. And people are saying, or some people are saying, oh, the sky is falling down.
Well, the analogy we use is everyone's used to steak dinners and it's hot dogs now. And that's okay.
And that's not to say that it isn't an issue for people who are struggling through this, but we can build on that and make sure that as we look forward, we've got a further diversified economy that bridges some of those gaps, recognizes, as I mentioned, the cyclical nature of some of those commodity prices, and build on into the future. This is a state that really is on the move. And I mentioned in several places where I went, an article I read in Governing Magazine just a couple of months ago, and the headline of the article was, here are the 7 states in America that are losing population. And how long ago was it where every one of us at the table would have said,
we were always number one on that list for a long time.
North Dakota's on that list. We're always on that list. We were number one on that side of the equation. And now we're on the other side of the equation, where we're the fastest growing, and our personal income is among the fastest growing in the country. Our population has increased after that time when people said we should turn it over to the buffalo. And now we're seeing that we have a record population of 757,000 citizens here in North Dakota, and there are even projections that we'll be at 1 million. And if we keep sight of what it is that makes North Dakota so great, and remember that it's our optimism, looking forward to what might happen. Everything is possible for this state. I mean, we've been recognized as one of the best, not once, but 4 years in a row by the Wall Street Journal, best run state in America, happiest state in America, lowest unemployment rate in America. Those are all good things. And that isn't to indicate we don't have to deal with the challenges, because
some of that was tied to the energy boom. It was. Some of those things were,
And you have challenges that results in budget issues for the state of North Dakota, business issues for people who are dealing with those struggles. Some of the hotel industry and some of the service industry dealing with those kinds of things. But most of the people I talk to out here are not gloomy. They are saying the price is coming back. We'll be back in, and we'll be well positioned to start up drilling those rigs again and hauling oil out, as long as we don't have a federal administration that is bound and determined to stop everything that it is that we're doing.
We want to revisit kind of the whole campaign dynamic between you and Doug Burgum this last couple of weeks. Seems like, I don't want to use the term mudslinging, that's not what it is, but it's chippy at times. It seems like there's, people, both sides have been, one side has been accused of one thing, one side has been accused of other thing. The Pat Finken thing with KFYR this past week, your stance or supposed stance on the Obamacare when it was first announced. What is your response to just how much of a campaign and how much of a political battle this has sort of become?
And is it surprising?
It was surprising.
It is. I will just tell you that at the beginning of this campaign, and I've known Doug Burgum for a long time, I thought that he would run a positive campaign that would be based on what it is that he is doing and not drag it down into a negative campaign. But that's exactly what he's done, and I'm very disappointed that he would do that. I think that it would be well to remember the 11th commandment of Ronald Reagan, which is, "Thou shalt not speak ill of another Republican." When I talk to people out on the street, and I hope this translates into how things ought to go in an election, they constantly are telling me, don't be negative. Talk about what it is you're going to do. I don't want to hear you dragging your opponent down. You talk about yourself and what you're going to do. Let the other candidate do that and knock off this negative campaigning. That's why I was so disappointed with the Obamacare ad, which is incredibly deceptive.
Mailer and everything.
Yeah, and it's deceptive.
It's
just not true, because of course everybody knows that I was on the ground floor spearheading the fight against Obamacare and sat for 3 days in the United States Supreme Court listening to the justices hear our appeal from the Republican attorneys general across the country fighting that legislation we think and still think was ill-advised. And to suggest that somehow I supported it is just not true. I guess I know what I support, and I know what I don't support, and certainly wasn't Obamacare. And to suggest that I do is just dishonest.
You're on the not on the record. We asked Bergen this question as well last week about social issues. Some of his opponents said he pivots sometimes instead of actually giving answers on them. So you're on the record as saying you support gay marriage. What do you say to the true diehard conservatives in the state whose votes decide on those issues that really don't get into the budget or those kind of things? They rely on those hot button topics. What do you say to them about your stance and what you've said on the record about those things?
About
gay marriage.
You know, we of course had a constitutional provision in North Carolina prohibited, and we were sued.
Supreme Court said otherwise.
The Supreme Court decided otherwise, and I'm the lawyer guy, the Attorney General, and the one thing that I know is that when the Supreme Court says this is the way that it is, that's the way that it is, and there's no point to look back and see what it is that we're going to do from there, because it's just the reality that we're going to contend with.
Do you hear much about social issues from constituents out there?
Not so much that. The abortion issue comes up quite a bit. The gay marriage, I think people just kind of recognize that things are changed. And who hasn't changed their view on it in a lot quicker time than, and I know
we're a lot more tolerant as people than we were 20 years ago towards the issue.
And how quick that it came about, that all of these things had transpired, and who would ever have thought that our own attitudes would change as much as they have. And I will confess that that is true with regard to my attitude. And and my wife and I were just talking the other day and said, of course, it's not even been a year that that's been the rule, but we're as happy as a married couple as we ever were. And it really hasn't affected us a whole lot. We're just going to have to contend with it. And I think that that's the reality. I think most people understand that, even though many of us felt that this wasn't for the court to decide, that it really was for the legislative branch of the government to make a determination, and that makes a lot of sense in my view. But that's not what happened, and we are where we are.
But you said the abortion topic does come up quite a bit. What are people asking you about that?
Well, they ask me what my position is, which I guess is pretty well known. Every law in the book that we had enacted while I was in the legislature, I voted for them, and I defended all of them in court as well. And so that's just as clear as it can be. I'm the only one who could say that I supported all the laws that we have in the books and also defended them in court. And I really think what people want on that issue is a straight answer, and there can be some disagreement.
It's tough for a politician to give a straight answer on that. I feel like that if I have any issue, that's going to be the toughest. And is it the toughest for you?
Oh, you know, there are so many tough issues. I was in the legislature, and we voted, during my career, 24 years, I probably voted on 50,000 different issues over the years. Well, and a lot of them were issues where you just wish that you could cast your vote anonymously or not at all, because there are a lot of tough issues that come up. It is not an easy thing for public service, but at least people, I think, will respect an honest, forthright answer more than a dodge and a pivot and a failure to answer the question.
Back, kind of steering away from your campaign, kind of going back to your day job, so to speak, as Attorney General here in Dickinson, DSU Foundation, still in receivership technically, still under investigation. It's coming up on 18 months now, or a little bit over 18 months. This has kind of been the case. You know, when will this investigation into the foundation wrap up, and are we going to expect any charges? on that here.
It really kind of looms over the town. It really does.
It does. It's a looming story.
I thought that it was really critical from the very beginning that we do everything to salvage the foundation and the money that generous donors had given to the foundation for the purpose of education. And so my whole goal in doing all of this and what we're working on through the court system and the receivership is to make sure that people who donated money to scholarships and other education-related expenses, make sure that it goes exactly to that it's restricted. And so we're trying to maximize the effectiveness of the restrictive gifts that were given by those generous donors. And and of course these things often take longer.
Take forever,
but we put together, there's a new foundation that is operating here, and what we're left with is a question of how much of that money can we make sure gets into the new foundation.
Well, I think a big question that's going around Dickinson right now is anybody going to take the blame for this? Is that something that your office has seen it all at this point, or is that something that's not even started yet?
You know, my main goal right here is to make sure that the foundation survives and that the generous gifts that are given go to the new foundation, and are devoted at least to the purposes for which they were given. Okay. And we don't. My office is not the criminal prosecutor in North Dakota. The criminal cases, for the large part in North Dakota, are prosecuted by local elected states attorneys. Okay. But so that's not a focus for me, and I think that it was a very wise thing to do to make sure, because otherwise that foundation was about to collapse. There were people that we thought that people who were going to get some of that money that was intended for educational purposes, and that's when I felt I had to step in. And it is complicated and it takes a long time. But I think as we work our way through this and get to the very end, people realize it was a wise thing to do, and now we'll have a sum of money that's available for educational purposes for the students here at Dickinson State.
Certainly.
Okay. Last question.
Go for it, Dustin. We talk about it every week.
We talk about it every week, folks. You guys all know this. We do have an inside source. Nicole taught Carson Wentz in high school at Century.
My claim to fame.
Your claim to fame. What do you guys think? We're filming this on Wednesday, so ironically, when this first airs,
it'll be draft time.
It'll be draft time.
He'll probably have a team by this time.
He may have a team by right now. He should have a team by right now. What do you guys think? I mean, where does he go? What do you expect out of him in the pros after knowing him personally?
Well, first of all, I just have to say we are so proud of Carson Wentz. And there are so many people across the state who are proud of him. But I think in Bismarck and at Century, we are particularly proud.
As you should be, yeah.
He is a young man of strong conviction, strong faith. He is grounded. He is humble. He is everything that we would hope that professional athletes would be as role models for our kids. And what is particularly fun for me is that Carson, when he was in high school, really lived in his brother's shadow.
He mentioned that in the Players Tribune article, yeah.
And so I love to tell the story of Carson Wentz playing out on the football field and completing a pass, and the announcer says pass completed by Zach Wentz, and his mother had to stand up finally in the stands and say, "It's Carson out there." And so to see a young man who was perfectly content to live in his brother's shadow now go out into the national scene and shine
and be in nobody's shadow.
Amazing. Yeah. And he deserves every bit of the accolades he gets. So we're so excited for him. We are all arguing, is he going to go to the Eagles? Is he going to be a part of the Rams? What is it going to be?
Sounds like Eagles, yeah.
Yeah, so we're eager to speculate, eager to watch him succeed. It's going to be fun.
This is such a great North Dakota story, and Carson's just a wonderful guy and a great ambassador, but I don't want to leave here without talking about the UND hockey too. Just to balance things off, because my wife is a proud NDSU grad, I'm a UND grad, and what a great thing for the whole state of North Dakota. And I found myself amazingly this year cheering for the Bison after all of those years, and I was, as the game was going on, and I was cheering, and then I thought, people always think politicians, of course, will do that, but I looked around and I was in my house, I was by myself. Still,
it wasn't a public rally?
It wasn't a public rally of any kind, but it's just a great North Dakota thing when our university, both of them, do as well, and the Bison team, of course.
I think the cool thing is there's kids in Bismarck now growing up in Mott and Bowman that can say, hey, I can do it too. He did it, I can do it. It's it'd be a great example for us.
I think that's going to be the biggest thing. Is I've talked to a lot of coaches lately. I'm writing a column on it for the day after the draft about there's a lot of coaches out there that think this is going to be big for their kids that actually have always been overlooked. I mean, how many players has Dickinson State, NDSU, UMary had over the years that probably could have gone to that next level, just like if they were in a bigger state? Carson was almost one of those guys who, he had one other offer.
Fell under the radar,
Yeah, it fell under the radar, and now look at him. So hopefully that's kind of what I feel, is that something like that could help the kids of the state, so more than almost anything.
Well, and a perfect role model. There too often you see some of these sports figures that might not be the kind of, might want to be the kind of role model you want, but this gentleman is just perfect role model for our kids.
Built on NEFLA and hard work.
That's right.
How about that? Well, Wayne and Nicole, thanks for joining us today on the Inside.
Great pleasure.
What's next in the campaign trail? Where you guys gonna, this is airing on Thursday, so you've been in Dickinson last night. It'll be.
Yep.
What's coming up in the weekend and the weeks ahead for you guys?
Okay, we're going to continue our tour around. We were in Minot last Friday, and Rugby on Monday, yesterday in Fargo. Here today, tomorrow we're off to Grand Forks, and so we're traveling thousands and thousands of miles around this state. I'm used to doing it.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I love it because I really am committed and love this state.
Hey, we're all biased. It's the best state in the world, in the U.S. That's how we feel. So
it really is.
And we've got to tease a debate between yourself, Doug Burgum, and Mr. Sorum. We'll be at the NDNA convention. I believe it's May 7th.
Up in Crosby.
Up in Crosby.
My wife's home area.
Okay.
So
the home of the Maroons.
Yep, the Maroons.
Yep. Yeah. That'll be on Saturday, May 7th at 10 a.m., I believe it is. It will be filmed. I can't remember which outlet it is right now off the top of my head, but we'll be covering it for Forum Communications. We'll be covering that debate. And, we're glad you guys have accepted that. And you will be there for that.
Okay, and there's can I mention the Prairie Public?
Absolutely, definitely.
So, plenty of opportunities for those kind of exchanges as well.
You guys going to be back in Southwest North Dakota before primaries?
Oh, yes.
Many times. We are scheduled every day trying to get our message out.
Get
so
somewhere,
it's going to be fun. Yep.
Okay.
Well, thanks, guys. Really appreciate you taking the time today.
Thanks.
We'll come back after this look at the week ahead on Insight.
A bundle from Consolidated is your local choice for internet, TV, and phone at a better value. Our internet is now faster than ever with GNet technology. Get affordable, consistent speeds now up to 1 gig. Our state-of-the-art TV connections deliver more HD choices and convenient DVR options, including TiVo. Our local phone service keeps you in touch for less, all backed by exceptional 24-hour support. Make the local choice for a better value by bundling. Call or visit Consolidated online today.
Folks, welcome back to Insight. Dustin, nice interview with our Attorney General WayneStenhjem and Nicole. Really got into some subjects, some issues, and kind of went deep dive on a few of these things.
Absolutely.
Got some answers.
We got some answers out of him that I really didn't expect him. I mean, he did go on for a while about his stance on gay marriage and
very
abortion,
straightforward,
which was huge. Very straighthtraward. I mean,
he said his record speaks for itself.
You'd be hard find to see many Republican candidates in the country issue a question like that on those social issues like that. The DSU Foundation answer, I know he's not quite tuned into that as he used to be now that he's on the campaign trail.
Yeah.
We did kind of sidetrack him there, I think, but hopefully, he's right that they'll get the money back delivered to the New Heritage Foundation.
I think a lot of us want that cleared up as quick as possible.
Yeah,
I think the college does.
And we'll have more on that, obviously, in the paper because of issues with. We have Andrew Hafner here in studio, our reporter. He was here in studio. He's covering the Stenhjem visit this week to Dickinson, and obviously, I'm sure they'll be back in town soon. I'm sure they'll be back here in the area.
The things are going to heat up in the next month because Burgum's campaign will throw the dollars out there, and they're going to get their message across any way they can. And they're going to have to really. It's going to be a little more contested than I think they thought it would be.
I think so too. What was the biggest thing in the interview for you? What was the biggest
doubling down on staying the course, not to stay the course.
That was something very
down.
new, I think. Yeah. He's never said that before.
Because he thinks energy's coming back. I think like a lion, it's going to roar back in, and he wants to double down on what got us there and keep going with it and improve upon it, which I thought was a little surprising because I think we're at a point personally where we need to diversify our North Dakota economy a little bit, and not be as reliant on commodities. But I could see how if oil does come back, it'd be a quick boom and a quick shot in the arm for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
How about yourself?
I did like that part. I was just kind of focused on some of those later questions that we had with social issues and the foundation. But hopefully people out there got the answers that they were looking for. If not, write us a letter to the editor.
Email, text us, Twitter us, whatever,
dmonkey@thedickinsonpress.com. If you want to write a letter about the Republican governor campaign or race between Stenhjem and Burgum, feel free to.
We'd love your feedback and the paper.
Let us know.
Yeah,
absolutely.
definitely.
400 words or less. The forum's yours now, folks.
There you go. Thanks again to our guests this week, WayneStenhjem and Nicole Pullman. We'll see you guys next week right here on Insight.